Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Jeff.
Thanks for doing this interview here.
Glad to be here.
With the pastor has left the building. But the pastor has left the pastorate, really.
That's right.
For a new ministry. As we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself and what position you currently hold.
I am Bruce Hanlon. I'm the head of school at Trinity Christian Academy, and I've been here, just finished wrapping up my first year as head of school here, and I've been involved with the school now for coming on 7 years.
Oh.
And this is my new role in life right now as head of school.
Head of school, all right.
Yeah.
We'll delve into more Trinity questions and information a little bit later, but first a few other topics. Tell us about your family.
Well, all right. I'm married. My wife Sarah and I have been married now. I just jumped into that one. Coming up on 18 years. And in September, it'll be 18 years. We have two girls, Grace, who's 15, and Beth, who's 11. And that's my family.
How did you and Sarah meet?
Sarah and I actually grew up in the same church. I was actually pastoring a church that she was attending after graduating from college, and she was doing youth ministry there. Oh. And I was leading a mission trip to Haiti, and she was part of that trip, and we just sparked up a deep friendship that just grew. And it was interesting. We had our first date on Labor Day weekend of 2003, and we're married on Labor Day weekend 2004.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
But you had a friendship growing before that.
Exactly, correct,
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. How about your family of origin? Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Framingham, Massachusetts here, and I'm one of 5 children. My parents were very strong, devout Catholics, and we grew up going to the Catholic Church as a family, and also kind of explains why there's so many of us kids.
Okay.
Kind of had to back in that time, so I'm number 4 out of 5, and I'm the 4th born, and right now the only one left in Massachusetts. My father's with the Lord now. My mom is actually up visiting with us. She lives with each one of us kids, mostly my 2 sisters in California and in West Virginia, but I have family members in Pasadena, California, Chicago, Virginia, and West Virginia.
All around. And
so,
she'll just go from house to house?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your overall feeling of your childhood growing up here, is anything that stands out or anything like that?
No, I mean, from a religious standpoint, we were raised in a home where no matter which way you turned, God was going to be somebody you were going to wrangle with at one point or another, whether that be my older siblings who went through, First Communion and Confirmation in Catholic Church, to my next oldest sister and younger brother and I, as my parents met the Lord and discovered what a relationship with Jesus was really all about, and we were kind of straddling the fence there for a while between Catholic Church and evangelical Bible preaching churches. We were steeped in it. As I said, my dad was very much on a journey of really trying to figure out where God stood in our family's life, and as part of that, he really wrestled with leaving the Catholic Church. I mean, he had family members that were telling him, you leave the Catholic Church, your family's doomed, Yeah. So he really took that very seriously, and it was, I didn't appreciate until much later in life how hard that must have been, for that transition to take place.
The Catholic guilt, I've heard about it.
Exactly, yeah, it's strong.
Yeah. Last time I was, our family was similar, but not as strong, but when I was in first grade was like last time I remember the hard benches. When we went from a Catholic church to a Protestant church, like, hey, they got pads on their benches. Yeah. I like this church much better.
That's right. That's exactly about the age that I was when my parents made the transition. Yeah.
Nice. If I were to say the word mentor or hero, does anyone stand out in your life?
Absolutely, without a doubt. My entire Christian life has been marked by the visual that I use to explain it is Tarzan swinging through the jungle, where God has just brought one individual akin to a vine in my life to swing me on to the next, onto the next. And from the time I was very young, always had individuals in my life that were willing to pour their lives into me and mentor me, and I was always hungry for that. And so for me, just by nature, I'm somebody who lives in the future, and I'm just constantly trying to think, who am I going to be? What am I going to become? What's my life going to be about 3 years, 5 years down the line? And I'm continually thinking, in those terms. And so knowing that and feeling a great deal of insecurity, I just naturally, I think, just kind of sought those people out, and I said, okay, I don't know what Jesus is going to look like in my life, but I can see the way he looks in yours, and I kind of resonate with it. And tell me more about it, or show me more about it, or talk to me more about it. And I think that was really kind of behind a lot of the motives. Was, I don't know what this is going to look like in me, but I see what it looks like in you, and I'm drawn to it. And certain gifts, and seeing certain abilities in different people that it was like a magnet that I said, I want to know more about that. I want to study and learn more about the way that you walk with Jesus, because it might be something that informs my walk with him.
I love it. It's a good way to look at it. This prideful jerk would never think that way.
Yeah, it's for the rest of us.
All right, so there's childhood, and then then coming to Cape Cod. Talk about the in-between years, some highlights, where you went, what you did, what the school, jobs.
Wow, okay. The challenge of trying to decide who I was and discern who God was creating me to be. I was a terrible student in school. I hate to admit that as a school principal, but I use that's very much a part of my testimony. And again, a lot of it was insecurity. I just could not fathom what the point was of all of the social pressure and emotional pressure of being in public school, which is where both I and my wife grew up going to public school. Didn't really have another option for where we grew up. And from that time, it just kind of sprang into a season of, okay, now I'm done with school, high school. What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? My parents didn't have the funds to send us off to college, so it was going to be something I needed to figure out if that's what I was going to become. And that's where the journey started, to really understand what education's all about, understand how God had wired me. I just took to it. I just took to school all of a sudden. I tell people all the time, I didn't really learn to read until after I graduated from high school. I knew how to read, but I didn't know how to love it, and how it could form me and shape me and encourage me and spur me on, and surrounded myself with book-loving people, and eventually finished college and graduate school, and that was where I said, all right, I think I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to teach. And so I went to seminary, I went to graduate school to learn how to be in Christian education, not how to be a pastor. So it was just kind of a series of circumstances that I ended up as a teacher in a Bible college in Kenya after I graduated from grad school, and absolutely loved it. Felt like all cylinders were firing. This is what God put me on earth for. And when that season came to a close, I had this overwhelming burden that what I was doing was right, but I was training all these people for a life of full-time ministry, and I'd never been involved in it. I'd been around it, but I'd never been at the helm or never been involved in from a leadership perspective. And just really felt, can even remember very clearly on that KLM flight from Kenya back to the United States saying, all right, Lord, I really feel like the next season of my life is to be just really steeped in what it means to serve you in your church. You know, if you have this mission for me in Christian education, it's going to be because I really understand your bride and what your real passion is, which is the church. It's all about the church. It's all about what he's doing through the body and who he's creating us to be together. And I want to spend time doing that. So I had one prayer, which was, Lord, please not just the church I grew up in.
Okay.
So that's where I ended up. Goes without saying. And I was the associate pastor there, and then the senior pastor left, and I was the interim pastor, and then I was the pastor. And what in the back of my mind was, all right, I'm going to do this for 3 to 5 years, and it must seem so hilarious from God's perspective that we come up with these little plans that he's supposed to abide by. I'll do this for 3 to 5 years, and I'll get back out there, and I'll do what I was doing before. And that plan turned into 11 years and 2 children, and my wife Sarah, and that led to our time in Malawi, where after 11 years of pastoring, felt like, okay, this is time where God has established a great work in this church, and they're ready to go on to the next chapter. And Sarah and I felt like that was our time to pursue this Christian education. And so we ended up doing a 2-year stint in Malawi, helping them start a master's program for the Bible college there at African Bible College. And that turned into a couple more years in Vienna, Austria, doing international ministry there, before we ended up here in the Cape.
You've been all around.
Yes.
Well, that sounds like a lot of background, and I'm sure we could pull apart a lot of that stuff, but
yes,
we're going to lead into where it got you into the Cape. But before that, you mentioned your 2 daughters,
yes,
Grace and Beth, which I've gotten to know Grace a little bit. She's a wonderful young lady. I did ask her the other night if there's any gotcha questions that I could come up with.
Oh, here we go.
And she's like, I can't think of any. I put her on the spot.
That's my girl.
So, but I know parenting has always been hard. But right now, in this world we live in, what do you think are some of the challenges we have as parents?
Oh man, what a great question. Love it. Yeah, I have obviously a burden for parents being involved in education, because unlike the direction that public schools are going, we exist to partner with parents because we see them as the primary drivers for their kids' education and spiritual formation. And that's a huge challenge, because I think parents, in the busyness and the pace of life that they travel in today, I think there's a great pressure to be your kid's friend. And I think this desire to be a friend, either on one end of the spectrum or just distant and removed, and I don't know what my kids are doing, I don't know what my kids are watching, I don't know what my kids are listening to. You got both ends of that spectrum, and I see them as really dominant in a lot of family systems today, that either the parents are eager to have a friendship relationship with their kids, thereby voiding out any of the boundaries and the tough part of parenting, really, or else they've just kind of written off the job altogether, and they're just kind of, society will raise my kids, the school will raise my kids, or the church will raise my kids, or it'll be somebody else's responsibility. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of parents, that they don't know how to parent in a way that says, someday we could have a friendship as father and son or father and daughter, but my job right now is not to be your best friend, but it's to be your guardian and your protector and one who points you toward Christ. And that means saying no sometimes, and that means withholding things that you see other kids getting or doing, and yet having conversations about that continually, saying, this is why we do that, and this is why we're called to be different. And you know what, the day's going to come where you get to make that call for your kids, but understand why I'm making this call right now, and really kind of walking them through that. And even for parents that do have kids, and it's the majority I know that have their kids in public school, well, how are you helping your child process what they're hearing and seeing and understanding? What are those conversations like? If it's not coming down to conversations you're having with your kid, then you're kind of lending them out to the world. They'll process it for you, or they'll process it with you, or that kid in the bus will explain the facts of life to your kid if you don't want to, or that teacher will fill in the blanks about how we got here and how life works if you don't want to have those conversations. But that's the Deuteronomy 7, as you're walking along the road, talk about these things. And if we're not talking about them, the world's more than happy to step in. And I think that's a huge challenge for parents today.
So constantly processing with the kids.
Yeah.
The phones seem to be the biggest deal.
Yes.
And when I say the phones, it's really not a phone. It's the most powerful computer ever created in our pockets.
Absolutely.
It was the hardest thing for me to think about, because I see the destructive nature. I see even physical kids get their heads down constantly. They're going to have neck problems. I mean, many different things, but it's really about what's constantly being bombarded. You say teachers are more than willing to fill in the gaps about where we created. Well, social media and everything's willing to fill in the gaps.
No doubt.
How did you process getting the phone, thinking about the phones, and what do you think? Should we just obliterate them all?
Yeah, start with this one.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's more than just the phone. It's become everything. It's I can't have a conversation. Well, let me look that up, or let me ask Siri, or let me, It's this constant companion that we sometimes don't even pay attention to how much of our lives it's come to rule. We don't know quiet anymore. I mean, even what does it mean to meditate on God's word? What does it mean to just be alone with your thoughts? We're not alone anymore. So when it comes to the kids, it's I know our kids are heading up to Camp Berea next week, and I delight at the fact, and they've been able to hang in there with it, and I don't know how they do it, but they're standing against the tide, saying, don't bring your phone. This is not about phones. And talking to a counselor a couple years ago up there, saying how freakish it is to sit there and watch these kids kind of stare at each other for like 24 hours, not knowing what to do without their thumbs tapping away on a keyboard, and yet just how heartbreaking it is that day 2 and day 3 they start to break out of their shells and converse and talk and laugh and share stories about life, and it's like, yes, that's it. That's what you're shortchanging yourself on. And so with our kids, we just kind of made the deal. Well, first of all, it starts with us. It started with our kids very young, that we wouldn't have our phones at the table. We wouldn't have that kitchen table, stereotypical table where everybody's face is in their phone type of thing. And we kind of tried to model it for them as parents, that this was not going to rule our lives, and you're not going to get one until we feel like that time is necessary, and that you can prove yourself able to maintain the boundaries that are necessary to have such a device, and even then to know that when we do hand that to you, and our oldest, our 15-year-old now has her first cell phone, and we have it on lockdown. We have a great program that we use to shut it off at hours of the day, and that's not accessible at night. And the content is something that we watched, and there too, those boundaries come in. We give you permission, we give you license, we give you a measure of freedom, increasing with age, and we also watch it very carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's great programs out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, and you can watch absolutely everything. And if the kids say, you want a phone? Great, just so you know, I know everything that's going on the phone. Deal. And at this point, it's a deal, and they need to be okay with that. And we as parents, and back to, we don't want to be their friends, we want to be their protectors.
Right.
And when you said that, immediately my brain went to the phone.
Yeah.
Because nothing's more destructive than that in so many different ways.
Right.
All right, so as a dad in the house with your family, are there any lines that you're famous for saying? Because you say them over and over.
Oh my goodness. I find it hilarious too when they eat something super hot and burn their mouth and make that noise to say, careful, it's hot. After the fact.
Tickles me too.
I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if that's a dad joke or what, but I have been busted multiple times by my kids as we're sitting, we'll watch a movie. From the time that they were little, a Friday night has been pizza movie night. Oh, nice. So Sarah makes homemade pizza, and we just gather around and watch a movie. And I've been busted so many times with one-liners that they didn't realize actually came from a movie.
Oh.
So yeah, that happened. That actually happens a lot. Is that I'll get
so you
I'll
weren't
have a movie line.
That original. That wasn't you.
Yeah. I've been asked, do you have any original lines that aren't taken from the movies? Yeah, but I do. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, other than the careful, that's hot. Yeah.
The one that goes along with that is when they slip down the last 3 set of steps on the stairs and go, careful. I love that one. If they're really crying, I'd probably wait a moment or two to make sure they're not bleeding.
Right, but it's still there in the waiting.
That's right. Now that you're almost over the trauma, careful.
Yeah.
I don't know why, that's just funny to me.
Yeah. Another one is when they used to always love to say, and I'm sure you've heard this, Mom said, but Mom said, Mom said whatever, but Mom said I could do this, or Mom said I could have that, or whatever. And I just break out singing that old Cherelle song, Mama Said There'd Be Days Like This.
Oh, nice. I bet they love that.
Oh, they can sing the whole thing.
Begrudgingly.
And do the eye rolls at the same time, exactly.
That's talent.
Yeah.
That's talent. Yes. Well, we're driving down beautiful 6A here in Cape Cod. How long have you lived on the Cape?
We moved here in October of 2015, so we're coming up on 7 years. Love living here, and to be able to live in Forestdale and pastor there for 6 years, and kind of be able to scope out when we saw the transition coming. All right, where would we like to live? If we had to live on the Cape, and God opened the door for us to stay and be part of the community here. And so we still love it. We still love discovering new beaches to walk, and new hikes to take, and new bike rides to do. And just last week, waking up super early and rollerblading the canal with my daughter, and just there's things like that to me, at least at this point, hasn't gotten old.
Nice. Any special favorite restaurants, coffee shops? Of course, we've got.
I got to put a plug in for Riverview Cafe, but for the past 2.5 years, I've been working on finishing a master's degree in education, and I joined the coffee club at Panera's. So I've been there every Saturday and Sunday mornings at 6 o'clock, right when it opens, banging out papers and finishing assignments and blogging different things. And so I can be found at Panera's. Plus, it's right down the street from me, so it's easy. But for $8.99 a month, you can have unlimited coffee.
Wow, that's pretty good.
which is outrageous.
Yes,
So
a month.
they made no money on me whatsoever.
No kidding.
So,
I mean, that's
now
two
public.
coffees.
It
At
is.
some fancy place.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So what did bring you to Cape Cod? Was it pastoring at Forestdale?
It was, yeah. We were wrapping up our time of ministry in Vienna, Austria, and just started putting out feelers for what God had for us next. And Forestdale Church came up on our radar. I honestly can't remember how. Maybe it's through Gordon Conwell and our connections there, but started talking to the leadership, and they were struggling at the time, and they were facing a lot of challenges, and actually kind of like that in a church, to be honest with you. I like churches that are committed and looking for their identity and just looking for some some leadership and some encouragement and some building up, and so we struck a good relationship, and they called me to come and candidate, and we did, and they invited us to come and be part of their church, and we've loved it. Although I'm not the pastor there, we still attend, which is not very common, but
No.
I very much wanted to make sure it was a decision that the incoming pastor was making, and so I basically said, I fully resign and step away from this, and this is yours, and if you'd like to use me in any capacity, I'd love to help out in any way that I can. And in, I think, an act of great humility on his part, Ethan, the new pastor, he took me up on that, and hopefully I've been able to be an encouragement and a blessing to him as I've been trying to position myself as being his chief cheerleader and proponent, and at the same time encourager from the wings. Yeah, so it's been good.
That kind of just says there's some health there in that church. There's some health in you and the new pastor. That's wonderful. That's a good thing. Because you're right, that would be rare.
Yeah.
Looking back at your years that you pastored Forestdale, what are some of your favorite memories or highlights?
Oh boy, we've had a lot. There's always been, as there are in most churches, is the contingent of people at Forestdale who are just super excited about the church and reaching out to their community. That's remained unchanged. I mean, people have come and gone, but there's still this core of people that really want to make an impact, for the kingdom and in our local community. So we've done some unbelievable outreaches, and just in terms of a couple of kids' days that we've put on, huge events out in the field that we have, just utilizing the property that God's given us to just be a blessing to the kids in our community during the summertime when parents are looking for stuff for their kids to do, and just putting on this huge free day for kids to come out and to just be loved, And so we've done yard sales. We did at Christmas time this past year. We did a gas card giveaway. Actually, that'd be a pretty good thing to do right now. Yeah. Just standing outside a couple of local gas stations down the street from us to say, hey, listen, we want to bless you on behalf of the church for this Christmas time. Merry Christmas, and giving out gas cards, and just a very tangible way to love people.
All right, I'm going to give you 3 if statements. See how you do here. If I told you everything for the rest of today got canceled, and you have a free day, what's your first thought? What would you do?
I'd go home and hang out with my kids, because my wife's working today and they're home alone, just doing their thing. And I'd go take them on a hike.
Nice. All right, if somebody walked up to you and said, I want to bless you and Sarah. This weekend I'm paying for you to do whatever you want, wherever you want to go. Take her. Where are you going?
Wherever? Oh.
Well, it's only a weekend, so, you don't want to spend all day on the plane.
Don't I?
That'll be the next question.
Oh, okay, all right. And it's on them. This is going to sound really extravagant, but I've always wanted to see the inside of the Chatham Bars Inn.
Oh.
So I've driven by the outside of it so many times just because I love that area and just driving around there. And I'd splurge for an overnight, like a Saturday night into Sunday, and just live that way for 24 hours.
I've been inside, but just in the lobby.
Is it
pretty,
nice?
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, I'll bet.
Food's good too.
If it's anything like the front driveway.
Yeah, that's right. Oh no, be able to walk all around there, across the street and the beach. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And then the last if statement is somebody, whatever, who pays for what, whatever. But you're going 2 weeks anywhere you want, taking the whole family. Where are you going?
Oh, easy. Florence, Italy. Yeah.
Have you been?
I have.
Okay.
I have, but I've been, but I haven't finished.
I haven't even started. Okay.
There's so much to it. I mean, there's this Hall of Heroes there in Florence, and you're like, oh man, here I am in some city in Italy, and I got all these statues of people that I don't know, and I look at the first one, and it's like, whoa, wait a sec, that's Galileo. I know Galileo. He's from here, and that's Leonardo da Vinci. What? Michelangelo? What? The guy whose name I can't remember, who invented do, re, mi, fa, so, all from here? All these people, emanated from this, one place, and it goes on and on and on. It's like, wow, this was a pretty important place back in the day, and just the beauty of that place is just. Sarah and I spent 5 days there with the kids, who were bored to tears because they were too young to appreciate it. But we have pictures to show them they were there, so we can, they can't tell us we didn't take them anywhere. But we just loved it, and I did especially. So yeah, that's where I'd go.
All right, so I got a scenario for you. One of your students asks to see you, and they come to you and say, Mr. Hanlon, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this. I've been going to church my whole life, been here at Trinity for 3 or 4 years, and I've heard the word gospel hundreds of times, but I don't really know what it is. I can't articulate it. I don't really understand it fully. Can you help me understand it? What would you tell that student?
Yeah. I would say to that student, it's very simple, and yet there's a lot to it. I think to just say it's very simple, it's good news, it's, John 3:16. Well, yeah, that's the gospel. God so loved the world that he gave his son. But I think there's a lot to it in that there's a lot, it's like a pebble in the still pond. The gospel is at its core what Christ did for us on the cross and in the empty tomb. That's where it begins, but it has a ripple effect that goes out into every corner of our lives. The gospel is God has created a way for us to know him, to be in relationship with him, to have our sins forgiven. And yet he offers to us the ability to reach back toward him in faith and say, I accept that, I want to live it, you're the Lord. That second part is the lifetime of working out and struggling and allowing God to scrape off the rough edges that we have. But it all goes back to that core. It starts at the cross, it starts at the empty tomb, it goes back to that amazing grace, but it works its way out into every corner of our lives. And knowing what it is, if all you've ever heard the gospel as is this story of what this guy Jesus did 2,000 years ago, and that's the beginning and the middle and the end of the story, it could be frustrating, it could be confusing. What is it? But when you realize it's really about a surrender of me being my God to him being my God, and all the ramifications of that, that's the gospel, and that's the power of the gospel, is that it's not cheap. It's not cheap grace. It's not easy believing. It's not the easy way through life. It's a daily call to surrender and to live radically. And I try to encourage them that way, that it's an ongoing process. Somebody explained the gospel to me one day, saying the Christian life is an ongoing process of discarding false images of who we thought God was.
Wow.
Which I've been unpacking that one for years.
Wow, yeah. You just blew my brain there.
Yeah.
When did you feel that you stepped out of being religious in your family and stepped into being a child of God?
You know what, for me, I've always had a hard time with naming the date. You know, on this day, this happened. Growing up in the family environment that I did, it was just peeling off the layers of an onion, you know, and I was that kid who gave his life to Christ multiple times at camp, you know, and well, was it a recommitment? Was it I don't know where that moment actually was. It's been this long unfolding process of understanding who he is and who I am in him. I just know that I've been immersed in it my whole life, and even in the hard, challenging times of life, I know I'm not walking out. You know, there's this continual pull and attraction and desire to want to love him and serve him, despite all my failures to do so.
Do you have an all-time favorite TV series growing up, or you could just watch those shows over and over and over?
Oh boy. I kind of grew up on Little House on the Prairie and imagined myself as living that life. This was back in the stage of life where I didn't like to read, so I didn't read the books. I watched the television. I didn't even know they were books until years later, but actually had my kids read those, so kind of do as I say, not as I do type of thing. But yeah, just that was a time in history where I could imagine myself living and kind of enjoying the outdoors and the camping and backpacking and roughing it type of stuff, and that was always exciting to me, having to go places in horseback and have these adventures. And you know, I'm sure it was much harder than the way Little House on the Prairie put it, but I loved that show. I used to watch that show a lot, and still watch it.
Wholesome shows. It's rare to find, isn't it?
Absolutely. I also like The Incredible Hulk too, so that wasn't so wholesome, but I enjoyed it. And my memories of watching The Incredible Hulk was whatever night it was on. I think it might have been Friday night. My parents had prayer meeting, so I had to. The one television we had in our house was in the room right adjacent to the living room where they were having their prayer meeting. So I had to watch it on like 0.5 volume. And it's sitting like this far from the TV so I could even hear what was happening.
It loses its luster when Bruce Banner's ripping raw and you're here. Yeah, it's probably not as exciting.
And cheering in silence. And it was,
That's funny. But you would do it as a kid. I'm not gonna miss it.
No.
All right. How about any favorite book besides the Bible? Do you have a book that's like everyone should just read this book? This blew me away.
Everyone should read it. Oh my, it's
a terribly hard question.
There's too many.
I know.
There's
Just say a couple. I don't care. Or a recent one.
One of the standout ones to me was Philip Yancey's Disappointment with God. I think modern day Christians would do well to read that one if they can get past the title, you know, and their objections to talking about disappointment with God. I think one of the things that the church is desperately in need of is we need to start being real. We need to start being real with each other, real about our faith, real about our struggles, and that's what that book's about. It's basically a study of Job, but loved it. Richard Stern's The Hole in Our Gospel, I think, is another one. And as somebody who has a deep passion for missions, he's the president of World Vision, and I think that's a really important book for people to, as we talk about loving God, loving people, and how we like the safety of the first one without the second. The getting dirty with that loving people part, those pesky people. Yeah, those are two that come to mind, but there's so many.
Okay, so Trinity, you said you've been connected with Trinity for 7 years, but been the head of school is what headmaster, head of school, principal, all these words. So go ahead and what connection did you have, and what ultimately led up to you replacing Ben Haskell?
Yeah. Okay, so with that background on Christian education, and that's what I went to grad school to study and to be part of. Christian education had always been a part of what I was doing, even when I was pastoring. Like the first church I was a part of, we started a school. I moved on from that church. We were working in a school over in Malawi. When we were living in Vienna, we were very actively involved, and my wife was working for the International School of Vienna. So when we got here, moved to the Cape, we were at that point, my oldest child was entering into third grade, and she will have been wherever we landed, it was going to be her sixth school. Wow. in third grade. That includes public school, that includes German school, that includes homeschool, and that includes private Christian school, and on 3 different continents. Wow. So we were really looking for stability and home for them. So when we came to the Cape, Trinity was one of the schools that we went to and looked at. And at that point in our lives, just looking at a lot of the trends of public education, looking at my wife's gift mix and her desire to, after 9 years of devoting herself full time to raising our kids as mom, ready to go, back and continue her career. We knew homeschool was out for us, and yet we wanted our kids to be involved in Christian school. So we reached back to Trinity, got the kids involved there, and it was almost immediate, saying, "Hey, listen, I'm a pastor, and I have a day off during the week. Maybe could I sub sometime?" So I started subbing. I got to know Ben, got to know the staff, got to love the teachers, got to love what they were doing and the mission that God had called them to, and kind of became that puppy again. It was just sort of like, hey, can I do this, and can I help out with that? And really having, honestly, no ulterior motives. And 3 and 4 years into it, I'm helping with the curriculum online design and putting that together, and assisting Ben in that way, and helping with in-service day activities and things. And one day I just reached out to Ben and I said, listen, it's been in my heart for a while. I have a degree in theology. I have a degree in ministry. But Christian education has been where my heart is, and I really want to grow in this. What do you recommend for me? And he put me on the path of going through ACSI's Leadership University to get my head of school certification, and they took him on to be my mentor through that program. So Ben was mentoring me in real time at the school as I was getting this, and I started that process of international house hunting through just the whole network of Christian schools around the world, thinking, where is God going to put me now that I'm, feeling like this track is really the next chapter in my life with the Lord, and my next vocational step, and then Ben and Peg pulled me aside one day and said, we're looking to retire, and we'd love for you to be that person that, with your permission, we would go to the board and say, we'd like Bruce to be the one that you consider for this. And wow. Yeah, that's what I said.
How did that hit you?
Honestly, at first, my first gut reaction is always, not here.
Yeah.
I got this Paul wandering spirit in me that's like, really? Like that anywhere but my home church,
Yeah.
And I just felt like, Ben and Peg had been such shapers of what Trinity's been becoming over the last 11 years. I was like, I would almost feel better being put in that little broken down, school that, kind of needed the help, or you get its footing under it. And so it was incredibly humbling, for them to ask and for them to even petition the board that way. And then in time, with their encouragement, said, you know what, maybe I could, do this. And I mean, I certainly don't need the love for this any more than I've got. That's already built in. I know the DNA of the school. I love what they're doing, and I believe in it. And so I went in. I met with the board, and felt God's yes over the whole thing.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Do you have a brief history of the school? Do you know all those details, when it started, all that?
I know it was. It's coming up on 55 years that it's been on the Cape.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it started in Yarmouth as part of a church there, and just one woman's vision to start a Christian school here in the Cape, and it just grew and blossomed until they couldn't fit in that space anymore. And then just about 20 years ago now, they were blessed with this property in Barnstable, and were given this land and building. And in the process, donors came alongside and helped expand on it and fill the classrooms and fix up the grounds and create what today is this amazing facility on Mary Dunn Road in Barnstable. That we're looking at now the largest enrollment in the history of the school this coming September, looking at the potential of 175 to 180 students coming in the doors.
From all the grades? So we got
pre-K through 12.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where's where are some, let's call it holes, but some parts that you feel like you do want to bolster up in Trinity?
Well, first and foremost, one of my passions and missions at the school is to see the faculty compensated better. To a person, they are there out of obedience to God, and that's so attractive to me, and honestly, one of the things that makes me love coming to work every day is that there's not a teacher in that school that isn't there because they're being obedient to the call of God on their lives to be there and to serve. But they do it despite all the professional qualifications that they have and all of the degrees that they hold. They could be getting so much more in public school. But I want to see them get a realistic increase in pay and really be appreciated to the degree that they need to be. Also, we're out of space. We're out of space as a school. We can't grow any more than where we're at right now unless we build on and add on classroom space. So we're bursting at the seams, especially in our junior high and some of our elementary classrooms. We're having to say no to people. We have waiting lists for classes. So what that looks like, how we get there, that's going to be a whole new chapter of learning for me. How do you lead the charge in a capital campaign like that, of that magnitude? I don't know. I just know God started this thing. It's kind of His to figure out and me to kind of listen and be obedient to. But we need space. We want to grow our extracurricular activities. We want to grow our sports and the things that we offer that are they're important to a lot of kids that that's a big part of their lives. And
Yeah.
God's blessed us with an incredible soccer field, and we could be doing a lot more with it than we are. And we just need God to send us those people and the resources to be able to really invest in it.
So is there ability to build on to where you're at, that building right there?
There is, yeah. There's still space. We have a good chunk of land. I would love to see a building that's really centered around a gymnasium. We have kind of half a gym right now. I really want the rest of it. But I think rather than adding on to the existing half gym, it would probably be much more cost effective to take another portion of the land and just build a gym with classrooms around it that could then potentially just become solely the high school building.
Oh, okay.
And it would also bring some of the students out and give them kind of their own space to live in. Plus, we could then start hosting basketball games and instead of having to use other facilities for that. So I'm thankful for the half gym that we have, but I'm praying that God gives us the rest of it.
Nice. Well, in that vein, praying for and seeing God, expecting God to do great things because He has in the past. Do you have any stories like that? Any God moments where you stepped in and did it, something that you know that was God just encouraging you in your life, in your work, your ministry?
There's been a number of those, in my life. One of the foundational ones was actually when I was young. I was in my early 20s. I might have been 20, 21 years old, and I was involved in church, involved in the worship team, involved with the youth group, and I was commuting as a student to Eastern Nazarene College at the time, and I was doing my daily grind on 128, and I just had this picture come to me in my head of all the churches in my area in Framingham just coming together to worship as one. And I'd never had that thought before. I don't know where it came from, but it was just kind of this unmistakable, this is what I'd love. This is my heartbeat. This is what I want, And it's the first time in my life that I ever really had I don't know if people use the word vision or whatever it's called. To me, I just got this picture and a sense of the heart of God. And at that moment, it was sort of like, all right, if I'm supposed to do something with this, I don't know what that is. How do I get all these different churches that are different churches for a reason, to come together? So I pictured the common, the Framingham Center Common as kind of the natural space for something like that to happen. And so I said, all right, God, here's what I'll do. I'll call the town and I'll ask them, can I use the common in the middle of town to bring all the churches together? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'll do that, because if I do that, then He'll let me go, and because they're going to laugh at me and just say, do you know what that involves in terms of parking, in terms of permitting, in terms of lighting, in terms of electricity, in terms of all this stuff? I'll just make the call, and then I can say, you know what, God, I did what you called me to do, right? I pick up the phone, I call the town, they send me to another department, and finally I talked to somebody, I said, hey, listen, my name's Bruce, I'm nobody, I like to use the town common, and I want to just bring all the churches in our town together for a night of worship and prayer. And the person says, hold on one moment, put me on hold. And I'm sitting there going, just say no already and let me go, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And the person comes back on the phone, click. Yeah, Bruce, what night did you want? Grab a calendar. How about this Friday night in August? Yeah, it's yours. Let us know what you need.
Wow.
The town provided police. The town provided electricity. Somebody called me up, had a flatbed truck he was going to use for the stage. Different churches all came together. I wasn't even on the stage that night. I never even set foot on the stage. It was worship team after worship team, pastor after pastor, giving short 5-minute encouraging words, surrounded by, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
Sounds awesome.
And what did this genius do? Called the town. One phone call. And to me, that was God going, kind of the best thing that you can do is just get out of the way. Do what I've called you to do. Be responsible for that. Own that. But then just let me do my thing. You do your part, but then really watch me do mine. And that somebody took the stage that night and sang that old Twyla Paris song, How Beautiful is the Body of Christ. Super old, like from the 80s.
Yep.
But as this person was singing, and I'm looking out at all these people, I was like, yeah, it is beautiful. It is beautiful. Because that's how it works. He does it all, and we just do our part.
Well, your part was to be in a relationship with the Lord, to be able to hear from the Lord.
Absolutely.
And then obey.
Yeah.
And that's a good lesson for us all to know and learn. God wants to use us. Are you available? Are you listening? Is your heart in the right spot? Are you keeping sin at bay, Satan at bay, and letting the Holy Spirit do some work?
Yeah.
And you did. That's awesome. Yeah. That's a fun story.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this interview with me, my friend.
Jeff, it's my pleasure.
This is great. It can be encouraging for a lot of people to see.
Well, hey, thank you for the opportunity.